And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at Darwinauts. This is from Green Couch Games. Green Couch makes mostly small little card games. In fact, I don't know what it was. When I backed this on Kickstarter, I thought this would also be a small card game. It's not. It's a bigger one. The thing about Darwinauts that really attracted me to it was the artwork is done by Vincent Dutrait, and he is my favorite board game artist. I love his stuff. And the idea here, you are going out and discovering new species and stuff like that. I want to give you kind of a heads up. That's about the most thematic it gets, that exciting sentence I just said. You're discovering new species! Other than that, you are placing tiles, getting resources, using those resources to get cards, and those cards are species. Huzzah! Here's how it plays. In the middle of the table, you're going to draw some tiles and randomly place them in a grid like this. Each player is going to get a species card. And these species cards need a number of resources to complete them, to discover them, and a certain number of points they're going to give you at the end of the game. Each player has a board that tells you all your actions and has some explorers on it. This is your collection where you'll put species that you discover. You'll also start with 2 tiles, and the tiles will be various formations of different terrain types out there. On a player's turn, you have 2 actions. So you can take the same action multiple times, and the actions are thusly. You can take a tile from your hand and put it out so long as it touches at least one other tile out here. When you do that, you're building basically areas here, regions they're called. So I might place this one here. That makes a big yellow region. So that's one thing you can do. Another thing you can do is you can travel. That's just place one of your people on a spot on one of the 2 halves of a tile, and they're in a region. You cannot place in a region where somebody else already is. So this is a pretty good region for me to place my guy in because it has 4 different segments. You can also discover a species over here. You do that simply by taking one of these and putting it in front of you, one of the 3 face-up ones, which is then replaced. You can only take a species. These are the only you can complete these. Anybody can complete these. And by the way, I should mention that's another one. If you have the resources to complete them, then you pay those resources. So this one needs a purple, green, and orange. You pay it whether it's here or whether you have it in your personal spot. You pay it, and you'll add it to your collection. The last action here is basically making camp. You may only do this action if you have no tiles in your hand. So like I said, everyone starts with 2 tiles. So until you place both tiles, you can't make camp. When you make camp, you're going to take your people on the board and you're going to pull them all off. You are then going to get resources equal to what was in that region. So this one here would give me 3 orange and a pink. That one would just give me a pink, which is not particularly useful, so you want to try to get your people into as big regions as possible so that you can get more resources. Now, when you discover a species, when you record a species, I guess, discovering a species, I use the terms incorrectly here. Discovering species means take it, only you can do it. Recording it means you pay the resources and put it face down in your collection. When you do that, you get a bonus action. The bonus actions are, hey, you can discover another species if you want to. You can even wipe the species and put 3 new ones out and discover one of them. But you can take any one resource, but likely you're going to want to mess with the board. You can take any tile and rotate that tile. Now, the tile has to have nobody on it, but you can see that if the brown person's there, I can rotate this to be like, heh, heh, heh. I just broke that up. You could also move an outside tile. So I couldn't move this one because it's surrounded, but I might, for example, move this one and move it and rotate it over here. You can do anything you want. These are like a bonus action that you can do. Now this is going to keep going until someone pulls a rift tile. This is in the bottom 6 tiles of the stack. When this happens, players, all the other tiles go away, and at the beginning of each player's turn, they're going to take 3 tiles on the outside away before they take their actions. Now there's only 7 tiles, but there's a stack of tiles that are going to be out there. It's going to be a pretty big area, but it's going to start shrinking, and you keep doing that until someone can no longer remove 3 tiles, at which point you will score. So each of the species that you've gotten is worth the points on them. So you can see here, if it needs 3 resources, it's worth 4. If it needs 4, it's worth 6. If it needs 5, it's worth 9. And if it needs 6 resources, it's worth 12. Also, if you've set a species, 3 species of the same color, you'll get a bonus of 5. Or if you have all 4 colors, so let's say I have all 4 of these colors, then you get a bonus of 5 also. You get an extra point for every 2 resources that you have next to the board, and whoever has the most points is the winner. There are a few variants that you can play with the game. There are weird, funky tiles like this one, which has more than just the 2 resources on it. There are some species that are wild colors in there. There are species called replicate here, so that when you score this one, you get 2 bonus actions instead of 1. So those things can be added in to the game also. The game is kind of centered on Vincent Dutrait's artwork here, so it's kind of here just for the flavor text. It doesn't really mean anything, but it looks cool. The card quality is really good, and the symbology here is pretty useful because if you can't tell the difference between pink and orange, and by the way, these count as 3 of the small ones, the little symbols on them will probably help you differentiate them. But the different neon colors I think are helpful. But really, this is the game. This is a lot of the stuff is the artwork here. And then the player boards give you some information. The tiles are a little boring, honestly. I don't know how they could have fixed it, but as you build these different regions on the board, it just feels a little sterile because they're just dun, 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 dun. That doesn't feel like you found a flowing river region. I wonder if this line in the middle, if it had been wavy a bit, that would have helped make the stuff look a little more natural. As it is, it kind of looks just like a giant petri dish that's out there. So, I don't know. They're functional. I just didn't think the tiles looked great. The rule book's very simple to understand, very easy. So, there you go. Now, the game itself works well. I mean, you have 2 actions. The actions are, hey, put out tiles. Make these big areas that you can then go in. So usually, your first action is going to be put a tile, make a nice chunky area, put a guy in. Done. Each person's likely going to do that. You're not going to place 2 tiles out because then you're making areas for other people. So that's part of that is a little scripted. So there is even a first turn advantage because the first person can be like, there's already 3 blue ones together. Boom, done. So there's a little bit of obviousness to that. After that, once the game gets flowing a bit, there are more choices involved. Very rarely is it worth it to take one of the creatures on the side in a sense because you're wasting an action when you could just complete that anyway, but you might do it because someone else could complete it before you, although I found that to be an end game action. But there are some interesting concepts here as build these areas, play your tiles. Then do you place all 3 of your people before you pull stuff back to get resources? Or do you pull back as soon as you can? When you pull back, you draw 2 more tiles. So you can't keep doing that over and over again. So there is some time in between there. You basically are only pulling your people off at minimum once every 3 turns. I'm okay with that. Using the resources to pay for the species is very, very mundane. And this is one of the problems I have with the game is because I don't mind stuff like that. Hey, pay stuff for these. But I'll tell you what, the bigger creatures are better. I'm not sure the point system here worked for me. If you have 6 different resources, the 6 resources you need to get at 12, you're paying 1 resource for 2 points. The small creature, you pay 3 resources to get 3 points. Now, there are lots of games that do that, but the problem is it's not hard to get 6 resources. You're going to get lots of resources in this game, so you're always better off going for these big creatures, and those bonuses at the end are nothing. Who cares? If I take a 4-point creature just to finish a set, and that 4-point creature then finishes that set, giving me 5 points, yay! So that's 9 total, but I could have just got the bigger creature eventually and gotten 12 points. We did not find that those bonuses really mattered at all. You went for a lot of big creatures, you're probably going to win. The other problem with the game, and this may or may not be a problem depending on what you think, is that when you get these bonus actions, those rotating tiles and moving tiles, those are really mean actions. In fact, when you rotate a tile or move one, it's possible to connect stuff and now have 2 people in the same area. That's fine. That's kind of like, hey, we're collaborating on this. But when someone has a big area and you rotate it and cut their area in half, or worse, cut them from even more than half of their area, that's not fun for that person. And it's something you got to do because you just scored. So you scored and hurt someone else. Now, yes, you could rotate something to make your life better, but usually it's much more makes sense to someone has this big area about to get a bunch of resources to cut them down. And so the game has this take that feel to it. The game also kind of slithers to a halt at the end because you're pulling tiles off the board, so it shrink. People are getting less resources at the end. You're trying to guess, do I just try to get as many resources as possible because 2 resources are a point? Do I turn them in for creatures? But I am probably talking longer about this game than it really is because it is a fairly light game. It's simple. Put tiles out, take actions, put your people out, pull them back, get the resources, use those resources for cards. That's it. And yet it doesn't feel like it has that hook. It doesn't feel as smooth as some of these games are. There's a lot of games, let's use Century Spice Roads, for example. You get an action, and the actions are just like da-da-da-da-da. Here, someone will pause for a second and go, okay, wait a minute. I'm going to place this here. Now, do I pull my people or not? Because I'm out of tiles. And should I take this card? And this game seemed to move in spurts. Like, hey, everything's going smoothly. Now, we'll stop for a brief moment while we wait for the next thing. I didn't dislike the game, but also, when I was done, I thought, I feel like I've seen this before. I feel like there's nothing new here. I'm connecting tiles and getting resources. And even the artwork, I like Vincent Dutrait's artwork, but this artwork, the species by themselves, didn't really bring any kind of story to life for me, so the whole thing just is a little ho-hum. It's a little forgettable. Actually, it's a lot forgettable. So you might like this. It might be interesting to you, but for me, this is one I think I might pass by because, yeah, it's simple. It's easy in many ways, but it also isn't very different or unique or something I think that will want me to play it too many more times. So that's my thoughts on Darwinauts. I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching the Dice Tower. Dice Tower Judgment? It's okay.